Hello and welcome back to Catching Flies podcast. I am Stephen Burton. Joining me as always, he is an author, a fantasy football manager, the happiest man in all the land on Sunday as TCU held off media darling Alabama to remain in the college football playoff. He is the Greek philosopher, Pete Makadis. What's going on, Petey?
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say Alabama's not in the playoff?
Yeah, that was correct. I
Yeah,
can't believe it.
boy.
I'm expecting the world to come to an
Yeah,
end
all right.
today, but yeah, they did make it.
That's right. That's right. Uh, Bama fans, we still love you. If you're listening, we want you to stay listening. But at the same time, this is the reality of the situation when it comes to the college football playoff. You're not in. I'm sorry. We said last week on our show between the top three, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, all of them were in, regardless of the outcome of this of their games, and we'll discuss those as we get there. But hello, everybody, and welcome to the Catching Flies podcast, the real CFP, by the way.
That's right.
I'm happy to be here with you guys. Before we dive into today's show, just want to briefly acknowledge that we're having a little bit of a change of tack in the show. We are heading toward just doing single topic shows. Whatever catches our fancy in the sports world. Occasionally, it might still be the wrestling world, maybe even the entertainment world at large. Who knows? We're just going to be purveyors of knowledge to the best of our ability and surveyors of what's going on in the greater world around us. So, as big college football fans, we are going to be looking at what just happened with the CFP, and we're going to take a larger look at the CFP picture. Again, we are the real CFP, of course, the Catching Flies podcast, but we're going to go ahead and give the college football playoff their due for right now. Before we start, how do you feel about Georgia and their chances?
I was a little nervous about getting Ohio State just because of their high-powered passing attack. But I think we proved with a 50 spot on LSU that we are the best team in the country and should be the favorites. And I'm ready. 30 days can't get here quick enough.
Absolutely. So let's quickly run down the results from championship weekend. We can't really call it championship Saturday because there were some games on Friday night as well. Just running down real quick. Pac-12 championship game, a bit of an upset, just given the rankings that Utah knocked off USC 47-24. Conference USA, UTSA expectedly won that game against North Texas by 3 touchdowns. Big 12 championship game went down to overtime. It was Kansas State that defeated TCU 31-28. As Stephen mentioned, Georgia did put up a 50 spot, or as Barry Switzer used to call it, a half 100. That math genius him. 50-30 win over LSU. And Michigan defeated Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. Clemson wound up hammering North Carolina 39-10. Tulane took care of UCF 45-28. It was an important game there, the American championship game. And some love to the smaller championship games, guys. Some love. Toledo beat Ohio in the MAC. Troy beat Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt. Fresno State beat Boise State. That's an upset.
Yeah, they got their quarterback back.
Yeah.
Fresno did, and they rolled.
Just by name alone, that's an upset. Boise's not what Boise used to be, but there's still that name carries some weight.
So, they won one game 2 decades ago. Everybody fell in love.
No, that was an incredible game, but they were very consistent for a long time. They actually, a forgotten game to some, they beat TCU in a bowl game where both teams were undefeated and, of course, left out. And they made them play each other, which was cool in one way, but sucked in another.
Sure.
But then Boise got that win. I watched that game start to finish. Both teams played well. Boise played a little better, and they deserved that win. So all that said, that brought us to the CFP selection this week. And that was some status quo, except for the last spot. Georgia won, stayed at number 1. No-brainer.
No-brainer.
Michigan won, even though they played weak competition, but they remained undefeated, and they stayed at number 2. No-brainer. Yep. Absolute no-brainer.
No-brainer.
Here's where it's not so much a no-brainer, but it's still kind of a no-brainer. So TCU And again, for those of you who aren't aware, I am from Fort Worth, Texas. I am a TCU fan. I might be the only one you know, but I am a TCU fan. I'm certainly the only one I know in this area of the country where I live. I'm sure back in the hometown there's still some too. But TCU is the only team in the United States of America to beat every team in its conference this year. I understand Georgia and Michigan went undefeated in their conference. They have larger conferences. They didn't play everybody.
We don't do the round robin.
They don't do the full round robin. TCU swept its conference and yet was put into a game against a team from its conference again. Fine.
Right.
We'll talk about 2014 in just a second. But so TCU has to play Kansas State again. And, they've been running on some magic this year. I'm not going to pretend that every win's been dominant. Magic ran out a little bit. Lost the game in overtime on a last-second field goal. That said, TCU is also, along with Michigan and Georgia, the only team to beat every team they played this year.
Right. Because even though they lost, they beat them earlier.
Yes.
Right.
So,
TCU and that's why they stayed at. That's what I was going to say. That's why they stayed at 3, I think, because they had beaten Kansas State pretty decisively earlier. And, it's tough to beat anybody twice, especially a team that's ranked, top 15. To beat them twice is very tough. So I think they did the right thing. I know off air, me and you talked about this a lot and debated it, was Michigan's loss, or I'm sorry, Ohio State's loss to Michigan, was that enough to get them to 3, or do you value making the conference championship game and having a slip up there more than not making the conference championship game? Because TCU lost to the 11th ranked team, Ohio State lost to the number 2 team, but they didn't make the conference championship game. And I'm glad the committee put a value on actually reaching your conference championship game, because they should. That's a very, very important accomplishment. And as you've seen with Georgia last year, we didn't win the conference championship, even though we won the national championship. This year, by winning the conference championship, it meant so much to the players. And they told that, in the media scrum afterwards, they expressed how important winning the conference is for the first time since 2017, and how much it really meant to the university and to the players. So, to some, conference championships may not matter, but to me, I think they're huge. And I just really hope they don't get devalued when we go to a 12 team in 2 years.
And we'll talk about that too. Everything as usual, folks. Everything that came out of Steven's mouth there was spot on. And in the same token, one could argue that USC got punished for playing in their championship game. It's funny how one thing is true and the other thing is true. Now, here's the uniqueness of USC situation. USC is like the Big 12. It's not necessarily West winner versus East winner. It's the 2 best teams by standing. So they had to play Utah, a team they lost to the year before, and they lost to them again. If USC did not have to play a conference championship game, you could argue that they would have stayed ahead of Washington, of Ohio State.
Yeah.
Washington's on my mind for later in the show too. So they kind of got punished too, but the uniqueness is they lost to the same team twice. And that's just unfortunate. If you played a team twice, you couldn't beat them, you're kind of out. No matter who that team is, you're kind of out.
No, absolutely. That's the only fair way to do that, really. I mean, USC had a pretty good year. Lincoln Riley's first year, he really brought the program up. Caleb Williams solidified himself as a future number 1 pick and most likely the Heisman Trophy winner for this year. As much as it pains me, I'm a Stetson Bennett guy. I'd love to see him win it, but just him being in the Final Four is a great accomplishment. But I believe Caleb Williams, he's special. He's Mahomes-esque. Obviously no one's Mahomes, but he's got that kind of ability and potential, I think. And even though USC lost their conference championship, I guess they could take some solace in knowing they're going to win the Heisman.
And just a little sidestep, I think it's great that Stetson's going to to New York. He's probably the 25th best player on that team, though, for real.
Right.
So I guess he's just kind of like as the quarterback representative of Georgia. But yeah,
it was more of a team like
sure.
representative, I
And
think.
then like
You
nobody
know
knows
that.
anything other than quarterbacks. So I mean, Jalen
Right.
Carter's 100 times better than Stetson Bennett,
Right. He's going to be
but
the number one pick in the
he might
draft,
be
most likely. Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the world.
right. Mm.
You know, we got first round left tackle,
Who's your other
but
tight end? Big dude.
Darnell
Darnell
Washington,
Watt. I forgot his name.
6'7", 280, runs a 4.6. The guy is an
That's
absolute freak.
that's going to be an Iowa situation where both of those guys are going to be first round picks, just like
Oh yeah,
T.J.
absolutely.
Hawkinson and Noah Fant were once
Yep,
upon a time. so
without question.
so the top three stayed the same.
Top three
The only
locked.
difference was number 4. Ohio State moved into the number 4 spot, and the question is going to be, what about Alabama? What about Alabama? You know what? Nick Saban's going on TV
During the
saying that
Big
we
Ten
lost it
championship game.
during the back.
Unreal.
Yeah, he's just out there like a politician. We lost 2 games on the last play. Okay, TCU lost 1 game on the last play. I mean, thanks for making our
Right.
point for us, Nick.
Not
The
to
bottom
mention
line is,
not
no,
to
you go
mention
ahead.
TCU's loss was to a 11th ranked team, whereas yeah, I mean Alabama, one of their losses was to a highly ranked Tennessee at the time, but their other loss was terrible. And you know, you can't quantify having 2 losses, one being to a very bad team over a one-loss team in a conference championship. And there's no way you can make that argument. Nick Saban was out there begging during the Big Ten championship game. You know,
Mm-hmm.
look at our strength of
Mm-hmm.
schedule, and we found some stats that have shown that TCU actually
Mm-hmm.
has a way better strength of schedule, and their opponent's record was way better than Alabama's opponent's records. So there's just no way they would have put if they would have put them in, it would have been for TV ratings and TV ratings alone, and would have really diminished the integrity of the CFP and why it was even created. So I didn't mean to cut you off there,
No,
but
you
I
got a
just
good
wanted to
point.
get that in because if Alabama got in, it would have been a work. It would have been fixed,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it would have really hurt college football because it wouldn't have been right. And that's what the fans want. They just want a fair playoff where their team has a fair shot as anybody to be rewarded for having a great season. And I just I really hope that they stick to this model for the future and they keep letting the lesser big name schools if they have a season that qualifies them to get in, they need to get in.
No, you didn't cut me off at all, Bubba. You said it exactly the way I would have. It was perfect. You guys, Steven's one of the greatest analysts you'll ever hear. He's on top of his stuff over here. But all this said, we want to take a look at the larger picture here and the CFP process. First and foremost, there's really no way to have 4 teams come into the playoff without there being a selection. You can't play like the NFL. Obviously, no, they don't play everybody, but there's
Right.
enough games played that the standings can tell you the story. And it's the same way in all professional sports. Even in basketball, they play enough games where it's pretty obvious. They take 68 teams to the tournament. 32 of them are automatic. Of those 36, usually like 33 are pretty obvious, and it's those last few that leave you scrapping. College football
Right.
can be trickier. You're only taking 4 teams for the time being. That's going to be the case going into next season as well. And it can be tough to pick the right 4 teams and putting them in
Absolutely.
the right order. And the order kind of matters too, because Georgia being number 1 gets them a Peach Bowl appearance instead of a Fiesta Bowl appearance.
That's a home game in
That's
Atlanta for
basically a
us.
home game. That's a home state game anyway.
It's a 45-minute drive to Athens from
That's
Atlanta,
basically
roughly.
that's about how far the 49ers stadium is from San Francisco. So that's a home
Right.
game. And then let's say Michigan had got the number 1 seed. They would have probably got that game, and Georgia would have been sent over to Arizona. Georgia to Arizona is quite a bit of distance in comparison, especially. So, all that matters, and it can be tough to get in the right order. And this season, it seems like it kind of fell in their lap. They had 2 undefeated teams and 2 one-loss teams. Everybody else had 2 losses. or more. So they got it right, I guess. But, let's go back to the first year, the 2014 season, when going into the last week, I'm going to have this pulled up so I definitely make sure I don't get this wrong. Going into the last week of the season, Alabama was 1, Oregon was 2, TCU was 3, Florida State was 4, Ohio State was 5, and Baylor was 6. Everybody won. Everybody won their game out of that group. So everyone's record increased by 1, including some conference championship games. Alabama stayed at 1, Oregon stayed at 2, Florida State jumped to 3, and Ohio State jumped to 4. Baylor dropped to 5th, TCU dropped all the way to 6th. And even though they won their game, it was just like this season. It was a blowout against Iowa State. So the first ever college football playoff was Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State. 3 big blue blood names. Let's not forget, Florida State were defending national champions.
Yeah.
In this,
they had Jameis Winston at that time.
And then Ohio State's Ohio State, Alabama's Alabama. Oregon at this time was, your like one West Coast team that has a chance.
That was Mariota, wasn't it? Was he the quarterback there?
I want to say yes.
That's what I was thinking.
And if it wasn't, it was the first year without him.
Right.
But anyway, and then you got Baylor and TCU, and those aren't your big college football names.
Right.
So the whole point was TCU and Baylor would have met in the Big 12 championship game that year, but they didn't have one. So they both got punished. So
punished. Okay,
yeah. So then they put it in this year. And if TCU had been left out before playing a national championship game, the system would be absolutely broken.
100%. I think that first year, what they were probably trying to do, as they're trying a new model out, they want big schools in, they wanted the big TV ratings, and, no offense to those smaller schools, but I don't think many people outside of Texas is going to, and maybe not even half of Texas is going to watch, a TCU or a Baylor in prime time like that. And I think it's pretty safe to say that first year they definitely worked it, because to win decisively and drop 3 spots is just an absolute joke. Like, to keep it kind of language friendly there.
Mm-hmm.
If something like that happened today, with the way social media has boomed and gotten so big, people would get fired and destroyed for those choices. I think it's pretty clear that's what they were trying to do, as TV ratings for that year at least.
And that's a shame.
It is a shame.
So you got to put this out there. You can't just take the 4 best teams. You have to take the 4 best seasons, or the 4 best resumes, so to speak. Because if it was just the 4 best teams, then why are we playing the season? Let's just go ahead and begin the season and pick Alabama and Ohio State, and
just look at
Oklahoma
the recruiting.
Would have been in there,
right?
I mean,
look at the recruiting rankings and see who's got the most 4 and 5 stars, and put it in a playoff. That
it would have been Alabama.
Is essentially what you're saying. Yeah,
it would have been Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and either Oklahoma or Texas A&M would have been the playoff this year.
A&M was picked by a lot of people. They reportedly, the rumor is they spent $30 million on their recruiting class. I don't know if it's that much. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that much. But to have this disappointing of a season, a lot of them guys are already transferring out, which the transfer portal did open up Monday, the day after the CFP was released. Yeah. But you gotta take and another thing that drove me nuts this year was they were trying to put Alabama in over TCU and Ohio State because of what they did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they won the title and went to the title game. Last year or previous years should not have any implication for what's going on this year. You can't look at the NFL and be like, well, because the Patriots had a 15, 20-year run, they're just automatically in the playoffs every year. They won a few Super Bowls and made a bunch of AFC championship games, or they're just automatically in.
Right.
No, you look at the team this year, you look at the wins and losses, and you got to pick the best 4, which they've handicapped themselves right off the bat by creating the best 4, because you're essentially saying one conference champion isn't good enough. Even because if you have 5 undefeated conference champions, they're for sure going to take the SEC no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten would be second, in my opinion. And then the Big 12 would probably be third. And they're not going to leave the pack out, especially if it's a USC or maybe even an Oregon, because the TV ratings are so high, and California is a huge state, and so right off the bat, that leaves one conference out to dry if they have an undefeated conference champion in that specific scenario. Now, it's highly unlikely that all 5 conferences would have an undefeated conference champion, but it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they handicap themselves right off the bat by not making it a 5-team playoff where, say, the number 1 seed gets a bye in the first round, 2 plays 4, 3 plays 5, or even a double bye. I mean,
it would be a triple bye. 1, 2, 3 would get the bye. 4 would play 5 under that scenario.
Right. Even that would work. But so they handicap themselves though right off the bat, and I think that's some of the reason why we are going to get 12 teams in 2 more years. But you got to look at this year and this year only. You can't live in the past. You can't live off of reputation. You can't live off of recruiting rankings. And I think they've done the best job they could of this year with the 4 teams that are in.
Right. And quick question before I move on. What bowl game is A&M playing in this year? Can you remember?
I didn't even know if they won 6 games.
They didn't. They're not going to be playing any bowl
I didn't
game.
think so. I thought them and Vandy were the only 2 SEC schools to not get qualified. Desmond Howard, terrible preseason pick. He picked A&M to go all the way this year.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's fine. You can make. I thought Houston was going to be phenomenal this year. So whoops. I thought Houston would be the group of 5 team in the playoff this year. Not in the playoff, in the New Year's 6.
Okay.
So that blew up on my face. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with making those picks and being wrong. None of us are perfect. But the whole thing of the best team. So who has the best roster? Probably Georgia and Alabama. Of course.
Yeah, we've had the recruiting rankings either 1 or 2 for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
If TCU played Alabama this week, Alabama would be favored. I understand that. But
probably by
their
10 points.
Season was not as good as TCU's season. And this whole the other point I want to make here, so in comparing, let's say coming into the playoff or coming into the championship week, I thought TCU was better than Michigan season-wise. And the point that a lot of people have been throwing at me is that, but Michigan's best win is Ohio State. That's better than any win TCU has. And fine, I can concede that. But this is the way I want to look at it. I want to paint a visual picture here. Imagine Michigan's season is a pearl necklace. And imagine TCU's season is also a pearl necklace. And your job is to get the pearl necklace that's more valuable. Okay? You're going to get it for free. You get to pick which one you want. You get to sell it off. So you want the one that makes you the most money. Okay? Michigan's 12 pearls on the necklace, which represent the 12 wins.
Right.
There's one pearl on that necklace that's better than any other pearl on TCU's necklace. Okay? That's the Ohio State pearl.
Right.
All right. So if you can only get one pearl off the necklaces, that's the one you want. But TCU's necklace of 12 pearls, when added up, have more value than Michigan's. Because Michigan has that Hawaii pearl and has that Yukon pearl. And
they got Indiana
State pearl and the Indiana
Maryland.
Pearl.
Yeah.
So if you're distracted by the one shiny pearl, then you're getting a raw deal. But if you can take the totality of TCU's pearl necklace, and I've said pearl necklace a few times here. Can get
Shout out Jock Peterson,
right? Right. And TCU's necklace is more valuable. Now, obviously, it's not anymore because they took the loss. So in comparison to Michigan, I understand why they're behind them now. But had they added a second Kansas State pearl, TCU would have been the number 2 team. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. 2 versus 3 makes no difference because they're going to play each other. And it's going to be in the same place. But let's say Georgia lost. Let's say Georgia lost.
Right.
I would have made the case that TCU should have been number 1 had they won their game.
If Michigan lost to Purdue, for sure.
Even if Michigan won that game.
Well, I mean, that is up for debate.
Based on the pearl necklace analogy.
You could argue that Michigan beating Purdue is not as good of a win as if TCU would have beaten Kansas State for the second time for sure.
Right.
And
That
then in
pearl
which
necklace
case
just
they're
got more
both
valuable.
undefeated. Right. I could have seen that then. Because
But
yes, Michigan has beat Ohio State, but that's really about it.
that's it.
They played a lot of turds.
They beat Penn State, who's nothing.
Penn State's a pretender.
Yep.
One week they're in the top 15, and then they lose to Pittsburgh or something.
Right.
And
I just wanted to make that larger point.
No, that's
don't
a fair
focus
point.
on, and I'm not talking to you per se. I'm talking to the
No,
universe.
sure.
Don't focus on one game. Take the whole necklace into account. So the CFP process, as we know it, is going to exist for one more year, and then it's going to change, and it's going to go to 12 teams. But it's just more than that. Let's take a look. So let's pretend this year was a 12-team playoff. It's not.
Yeah, I've seen those mocks.
Yeah, it wouldn't be all of a sudden it would just be Georgia number 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, Ohio State 4. It's not the way it would work. The top 4 conference champions would automatically be in the top 4 spots.
When you say top 4, you mean the top 4 highest rated?
Yes,
the conference champions.
Right.
They would get a bye.
Yeah, so this is the way it would look. I have it right here in front of me. Georgia would still be number 1. Michigan would still be number 2. I just gave away number 3. Clemson would be the number 3 seed as the number 7 overall team in the CFP rankings. They are the next highest conference champion. And then Utah, winning the Pac-12 championship, would be 4th.
4th, right.
They would get buys. And then it would go down in order. It would go TCU would be 5th, Ohio State 6th, Alabama would now be 7th, Tennessee would be 8th, Kansas State would be 9th. And even though Kansas State won their conference championship,
they were ranked 11th.
They were ranked, well, they're ranked 9th in the CFP
or 9th,
right now.
I'm sorry.
But they're not one of the top 4 conference champions.
Right.
The top 4. So after that, it's just based on rankings. So Kansas State wouldn't leap up to 5. USC would be 10th. Penn State would be 11th. And then Tulane, even though they're 16th in the CFP rankings, as the next highest conference champion, would go up to 12.
Shout out Mac.
Right. And Tulane beat Kansas State this season.
Right. I went to Ball State, so I've always got a little love for the MAC.
Yeah. Well, Tulane's in the American, but it's.
Oh, my bad. Jeez. Who am I thinking?
Toledo.
Maybe I'm Toledo. That's who I was. My bad.
It's all good.
You're
it's all
right.
good. It's all good. Now, here's where the controversy would really kick in. So I don't think anyone would have too much of a problem with most of those teams, except that Washington would be left out for Penn State.
And that's going to be the case every year.
Right.
Even with 12, there's still going to be some snubs and some debate. They're never going to be able to please the entire country. No. It's impossible.
But, I would make the case for Washington over Penn State all day. Penn State played 2 tough games all year, and they lost them both.
I will forever be a Penn State hater.
Me too.
And I never want to see. Yeah, we won't get into that, but.
Right.
But they should have got the death penalty and just barred from ever being in the CFP ever again. Yeah,
at least for a while.
But yeah, I definitely think out there in the pack, a lot of people, especially on our side of the country, which we're Southern Indiana, Kentucky, East Coast, they don't get to see a lot of the pack games. So because they don't come on until 11, o'clock at night at our time. They don't realize how good some of them teams are. And that was a tougher conference than even the Big Ten was. Mm-hmm. There was 2 elite teams in the Big Ten and then nothing but trash. But there was more parity across the pack with Oregon, UCLA, Washington, USC, the Utah,
the champion.
both of the Utah, so that conference was pretty stout, really.
It was. And that would have been the big fight to me, Washington over Penn State. So I think the overriding question would be, would we rather have the argument of who should get in between Washington and Penn State, or the argument of who should get in between, let's say, TCU and Ohio State from 2014? I'd rather have the argument at the lower end of the spectrum.
Sure.
Where we're not sure who the 11th or 12th or 13th best is versus the 3rd, 4th, 5th. So in the NCAA tournament, there might be a question about whether a team should get a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed. You might want to bulletin board material if you get the 2 seed. But the argument really comes down to who is the 32nd, 33rd, 34th best at-large team. And you can split hairs with that, and there will be some teams that are upset, yes, but I'd rather have that argument. I'd rather have that argument than, oh my goodness, this team's undefeated or they only have one loss and they're being left out.
Absolutely.
So in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to ask you this question, Steve, and I'm going to answer it myself after you've answered. Are we better off moving to 12 teams?
I'm not a big fan of it yet. Maybe once I've seen it played out. I feel like 6 or maybe 8 would be okay. But to me, you got to reward teams for winning a conference championship, making their conference championship. And the other big thing that bothers me most about the 12 team is, okay, for instance, Georgia and Florida every year, that's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Usually whoever wins that game wins the East in a normal year. Now, I know Tennessee was really, really good this year or whatnot, but in a typical SEC year, Georgia plays Florida. The winner of that wins the East and pretty much guarantees themselves in the conference championship game against either Alabama, Auburn, whoever from the West. I feel like when we go to 12 teams, say Georgia's ranked 3rd and Florida's ranked 5th, when they play each other, who cares? They're both going to be in the top 12. When Georgia plays Auburn or when we play Georgia Tech and it's clean old-fashioned hate, some of these rivalry games that go back 50, 100 years that every year meant so much, because if you beat that one team, as long as you handled your business elsewhere, usually it came down to that one team, and if you beat them, you knew you were in, you knew you had a shot. And I'm just using that as an example in the SEC, but it goes for, Oklahoma and Texas, USC, UCLA, Michigan, Ohio State, any of the big college football rivalries, Florida State and Miami, like, it mattered so much, that one game, because it would determine whether you were going to your conference championship. And if you went to either the CFP or at the time the BCS, or had a shot at being proclaimed the national champions. So I just worry that it's going to really diminish a lot of the rivalries, because if the two teams are highly ranked, I don't think they're going to care a lot, unless it's just pure what's the word I'm looking for, competitiveness on their part. The game itself, though, at the end of the day, like, if teams rank that high, they're both going to make the top 12. It's going to really take away from a lot of the great rivalries, which to me is why I love college football so much, more than the NFL even, because of the rivalries, because of the passion, the fan base. And I just don't want that to get diminished in any way by allowing more teams. And then, if the SEC gets 4 teams or 5 teams in some crazy year, it's going to spark other debates and the hate and everything too. So I just think 12 is a bit too much. I would like to see either 6 or an 8 personally at the most, but I'm okay with 4 even as of now. I think 6 would be ideal, maybe even 8, just because you can have that one slip up. You could be an elite team, but on that particular Saturday, just got a bunch of guys sick, or just didn't play your standard or typical football and get beat, and you're kind of punished for the whole year with that one loss. Especially if it's judging by how the college football committee usually punishes people, they kind of, if it's a later loss in the season, you get hit a little harder than if it's at the beginning. But that's just my overarching view on college football. I love it. I love where we're at now. I just worry that it's really going to hurt a lot of the great rivalries that make the sport up.
Right, and piggybacking off your point, two things I'd like to say. Number one, baseball's been the same way. 4 teams made the playoffs up until 94. It was each of the division champions, and the 1993 playoff. The pennant race between the Braves and the Giants was just every single day.
100 lost teams, not getting in.
100 win team. Yes.
Or win, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Each team was 102 and 59 going. No, pardon me. 102 and 50. Let me do the math here in my head. 102 and 57 going into their last series of the season. The Braves won 2 games and the Giants lost 2 games and they got in. The Giants lost to the Dodgers, rivalries. And a great team got left out. So they introduced a wild card. Now 4 teams from each division, from each league. 8 teams made the playoffs, then 10 teams. Now baseball's at 12.
Right.
I don't
and
see
you're
them.
going to see teams like this year with the Phillies that don't win their division, don't even finish in the top 2 in their division, and somehow get a wild card and make it all the way to the World Series because they got hot.
Yep, and that's not going anywhere. So I don't see it going anywhere with college football.
And I think that could happen in college football too.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, Tulane could win the championship. Penn State could win the championship under this format this year. Yeah, I mean,
right. So, right. But, no, I'm with you. I just think it's too much.
And there are
maybe
some
one wild card. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, there are some that would say if that Penn State was the 11th seed and they beat Ohio State and they beat Clemson and they beat Michigan, they beat Georgia, they'd be deserving national champions if they could run that gamut. So, but all that said, the idea of rivalry games, Michigan, Ohio State this season, both undefeated, big stakes in that game, right? As it turns out, they both made the playoff, but that was by gift. If USC won, then that would have served as an elimination game. The other argument you can make is that the game would still matter because the winner would get that first round bye. So they'll find ways to spin it. To answer the question, are we better off with 12 teams? Yes, for me, but I prefer 8. And I'm going to link to the bottom of this video on YouTube and on Spotify, a video I made a year and a half, 2 years ago, fixing college football. It's about a 20-minute long video. I hope everybody would watch it, where I set up a system where it would be 8 teams. So I don't want to talk about that too much because that's not what this video is about. Sure. Post it in the comments below. And I hope everyone gives it a watch. So all that said, we do have a Final Four. Let's make some quick predictions.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go to you first. Georgia, Ohio State. I know who you're picking. Just go ahead and tell everybody who you're picking.
I didn't want to play Ohio State.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie to you. They're the one team who has enough firepower on offense to make me worry. Their defense, as Michigan proved, is you can expose them. I think Georgia's going to do that, and that Georgia's going to win with a dominant run game, probably like a 38-21, 35-24 type of game. I'll say the spread, I believe, was like 7.5. I think Georgia will cover that. I think they're going to win by 10-14.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I think Georgia wins.
Dominant defense.
The championship game. Yeah, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and pick the upset. And you can call me a homer if you want. Call me a homer if you want. I don't care. You can call me Homer. You can call me Marge. You can call me Bart. I don't care what you call me. I think TCU will
just call you a TCU fan.
Yeah, but I honestly, in my objective point of view, if the game doesn't get away from them early, which I don't think it will, I say TCU beats Michigan.
I think TCU definitely has a shot. They've got to play a clean game. And by clean, I mean no fumbles, no interceptions, maybe even get a fumble or an interception. Blake Corum being out for Michigan, I think is big. He's a good running back. They do have another good running back, but Corum's, pretty special. But I think if TCU plays a clean game, has no turnovers, gets a turnover or 2, it's definitely going to come down the line. Look, Purdue's trash, and they played Michigan close until the final few minutes. Michigan kind of pulled away at the end. Yeah. Illinois, same thing. Illinois kind of had them beat. And Michigan, for their win over Ohio State, it was by 20 points, but they didn't pull away until the final 4 or 5 minutes of the game. It was a 6-7 point game, that whole game. So to me, TCU's got to play clean, but they definitely have a shot with old hacksaw Jim Dugan at quarterback.
Jim is his father's name, by the way.
Right?
Jim is his father's name. Perfect. So his father's a true hacksaw. He's Hacksaw Jr. So just for the sake of argument, let's say that.
But I will pick Michigan. Sorry, I just want to get that.
Okay,
in.
Well,
I think Michigan will pull it out in the end by maybe 3 to 6 points at most. Close game.
Okay, that's fine. So, so we'd have two different championship game predictions. I know you're going to pick Georgia to beat Michigan. That's fine. That would be a
Sure.
great pick. If it turns out to be Georgia versus TCU, that would be hilarious. It would be Steve's team against my team. Not something I saw at the beginning of the season, at least not from my perspective, TCU. If that game takes place, we're going to watch it together Monday night. We're going to talk about it on pod on Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely.
My prediction for that game is that TCU would win by about 576 points. I'm kidding. So as much as TCU would have all the heart and soul in the world, they can't beat Georgia unless it's weird, unless weird stuff happens. So we're
It,
both
it,
picking Georgia to win the national championship for a second straight season.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We need all the good vibes we can get.
Yeah.
I think if Georgia were to play TCU, as long as Georgia didn't turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, I think our defense and our athletes are just superior and would eventually, it might be
It'd be
close
like
early, but
27-3 would be the final.
I
Something
think,
like that.
yeah, I think we'd pull away
Maybe
kind of like we
27-10.
did, yeah, to
Yeah.
LSU. But I think the Michigan game that could worry me a little bit because we beat them last year. Now they're not the same teams. Obviously, we had 15 guys drafted, including 5 first-round picks. Michigan lost the number 2 pick, and several other great players, and Jabo, and so I think it would be the revenge factor. I think it would be a pretty good game, close, hard hitting, similar style run games, but I think ultimately we're going to out athlete you. And if you give Kirby Smart a week to prepare, I'm taking him every time.
All right. So that's our look at college football. Um, State of the CFP, what they did this year, what they've done in the past, and what we see happening in the future. That's going to bring us close to the end of our show. Steven, you had something you wanted for us here before we get off the air?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick shout outs. I wanted to show a little love to friends of mine from the One Bar and Lufficus show on YouTube. They cover the Minnesota Vikings each week. Great guys. They shouted us out. We were wanting to shout them out. They've been around a few years, so they got way, way, way more followers than us at this point in time. But if you guys are NFL fans or Vikings fans, they're the best in the business to me on YouTube. They have a lot of fun, kind of like we try to do, and break the games down. And they don't just do Vikings games. Whoever they're playing, they call it sculling with the enemy, where they sit down and review the other team, and it's a lot of fun though. It's a really great podcast. Also, a friend of ours, Howard Silliman, he's done a lot for us, helping promote the show. Just wanted to say thank you, Howard. He moved to California a few months ago, and we miss you. Hope you're doing good out there. Appreciate all the love and support, and hopefully whoever hears this will share it and help us continue to grow. And you can follow us on Twitter at Catching Flies W1, and my Facebook is Stephen Burton. Pete's got a Facebook. We'll post the show there. You can listen to it on YouTube for free or Spotify for free. Thank you guys for so much support, and continue to push that like button, subscribe, share. We just really, really appreciate all the help and support.
Absolutely. Thank you for all that. Thank you to the Vikings boys. Howard, my boy, known Howard for quite a while now. We miss him for sure.
Yeah,
He went to
great
California.
person.
I guess his family's out there. I never want to live in California again. But thank you for all that. And guys, hopefully we like the new format. We're going to come back with a whole new format, a whole new topic next week. If it
Right.
turns out Georgia is going to play TCU in the national championship game, we will cover that. Of course, that game's not going to be known for another 3 or 4 weeks. I said this week, my fault. I'm getting ahead of myself. But
a few weeks away.
Yeah, we'll come back
there.
with something new. College football, maybe NFL, maybe I don't know. Maybe Will Smith slaps somebody again. We'll talk about that. I don't know. But that's it for us. Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of the celebrity world there, just real quick, rest in peace to Christine McVie and Kirstie Alley. They're more of your era, but I love Fleetwood Mac, and she was a incredible songwriter and musician, and a great actress for all the Cheers fans from back in the day. that was kind of a sour note coming on today when I saw that. So
Right.
just wanted to get that in briefly. But
Yeah,
Pete, take us home.
I can't start a Christine McVie tribute right now. It's gonna be too long. Just much love, my songbird, your songbird. Rest with the angels, girl. Thank you for everything. So
Absolutely.
we will be back next week. For those of you who are with us today, thank you. We look forward to having you back then as well. And this is the Catching Flies podcast signing off. Everybody have a great day and a great week.